A mother finds mysterious photos in her eldest daughter's backpack. When she reads what's written on the back, she immediately calls 911. Before we dive into this gripping tale, take a moment to share where you're tuning in from in the comments below. Now, let's embark on this emotional journey together. The soft glow of dawn crept through the curtains of the Thompson household, painting the kitchen in hues of amber and gold. Sarah Thompson, her chestnut hair pulled back in a messy bun, stood at the stove, the sizzle of bacon a comforting backdrop to the quiet morning. At 42, she wore the lines around her eyes like badges of honor, each one etched by years of laughter, worry, and love for her two daughters. "Zoe, Lily, breakfast's ready," Sarah called out, her voice carrying up the stairs with the practiced ease of a mother who had uttered those words countless times before. 17-year-old Zoe was the first to appear, her dark hair a cascade over her shoulders, blue eyes still heavy with sleep. She moved with the grace of a dancer, a talent she'd nurtured since childhood. Behind her, 12-year-old Lily bounded down the stairs, all enthusiasm and energy, her freckled face alight with the promise of a new day. "Morning, Mom," Zoe mumbled, sliding onto a stool at the kitchen island. Sarah noticed the slight slump in her older daughter's shoulders, a subtle change from her usually perfect posture. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" Sarah asked, placing a plate of eggs and bacon in front of Zoe. "You seem a little off this morning." Zoe shrugged, pushing the food around her plate. "Just tired. Late night studying for finals." Sarah nodded, but a flicker of concern crossed her face. Zoe had always been driven, but lately she seemed to be pushing herself harder than ever. As she turned to serve Lily, who was chattering excitedly about a school project, Sarah made a mental note to keep a closer eye on her eldest. "Mom, can you help me with my science fair project later?" Lily asked, her mouth full of toast. "Of course, sweetie," Sarah replied, ruffling Lily's auburn curls. "We'll tackle it right after I get home from my shift at the hospital." As a nurse at Mercy General, Sarah's schedule was often hectic, but she prided herself on always making time for her girls. With their father David frequently away on business trips, Sarah had become the pillar of stability in their lives. "Zoe, don't forget you promised to help me with my English essay," Lily reminded her sister, her green eyes wide with admiration for her older sibling. Zoe's face softened, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "I remember, Squirt. We'll work on it after school." Sarah watched the interaction with a warmth blooming in her chest. Despite their 5-year age gap, her daughters had always been close. Zoe had taken on the role of protector and confidant to Lily, a bond that Sarah treasured. As the girls finished their breakfast and gathered their backpacks, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Zoe. It was more than just the stress of exams. There was a heaviness to her movements, a distance in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Zoe, honey," Sarah called as her daughter headed for the door. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? If something's bothering you." Zoe paused, her hand on the doorknob. For a moment, Sarah thought she saw a flicker of something. Fear? Guilt? In her daughter's eyes. But as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, replaced by Zoe's usual mask of calm competence. "I know, Mom," Zoe replied, her voice steady. "Everything's fine. I'll see you after school." As the door closed behind her daughters, Sarah stood in the suddenly quiet kitchen, the echo of Zoe's words hanging in the air. She couldn't shake the nagging feeling that everything was not in fact fine. Little did Sarah know that this ordinary morning was the beginning of a journey that would test the bonds of their family, expose dark secrets, and challenge everything she thought she knew about her daughter. The ringing of her phone startled Sarah out of her reverie. It was the hospital calling her in early for an emergency shift. As she rushed to get ready, Sarah pushed her concerns about Zoe to the back of her mind, but the seed of worry had been planted, and in the coming days, it would grow into a force that would change their lives forever. As Sarah locked the front door behind her, she couldn't have known that in just a few short weeks, she would be staring at photographs that would shatter her world and drive her to make a desperate call to 911. The journey ahead would be one of heartbreak, courage, and ultimately, the unbreakable power of a mother's love. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the Thompsons' front yard. In the distance, a siren wailed, a haunting sound that seemed to echo the troubles that lay ahead for this unsuspecting family. The stage was set, the players in place, for a drama that would test the limits of trust, forgiveness, and the bustling corridors of Mercy General Hospital echoed with the steady rhythm of Sarah Thompson's footsteps as she made her rounds. The antiseptic smell and the soft beeping of machines had long ago become a second home to her, a place where she could make a difference in people's lives. But today, even as she checked IVs and comforted patients, her mind kept drifting back to the breakfast table and the look in Zoe's eyes. "Earth to Sarah," a voice called, snapping her out of her thoughts. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her longtime friend and colleague, stood before her, a knowing smile on her face. "That's the third time you've checked Mrs. Johnson's chart. Everything okay?" Sarah sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Sorry, Elena. I'm just a bit distracted today. It's Zoe. She seems off somehow. I can't quite put my finger on it." Elena's smile softened. "Teenagers, right? My Carlos is the same age. One day they're sharing everything, the next it's like trying to read hieroglyphics." As they walked together towards the nurse's station, Sarah confided her worries. "It's more than just typical teenage moodiness. Zoe's always been so open with me, but lately, it's like there's this wall between us. I'm probably overreacting, right?" Elena squeezed her friend's shoulder. "A mother's instinct is rarely wrong, Sarah. Keep those lines of communication open. She'll come to you when she's ready." The rest of Sarah's shift passed in a blur of routine tasks and emergencies. As she drove home, the setting sun painting, the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was on the horizon. Pulling into the driveway, Sarah noticed David's car was absent. Another late night at the office, no doubt. As she entered the house, the sound of laughter drifted from the kitchen. For a moment, her worries melted away. "Mom," Lily called out, her face lighting up. "You're just in time. Zoe's helping me with my science project. We're making a volcano." Sarah rounded the corner to find the kitchen island covered in newspapers, with a clay mountain taking shape in the center. Zoe stood behind Lily, guiding her hands as they molded the volcano's peak. "Looks like you two have been busy," Sarah said, dropping a kiss on each of her daughters' heads. "Have you eaten?" Zoe nodded, not quite meeting her mother's eyes. "I made pasta. There's some left for you in the microwave." As Sarah warmed up her dinner, she watched her daughters work. Zoe was patient with Lily, her instructions clear and encouraging. It was moments like these that made Sarah's heart swell, with pride. But even as she observed their interaction, she couldn't ignore the tension in Zoe's shoulders, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Later that evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Sarah knocked softly on Zoe's door. "Can I come in?" "Sure, Mom," Zoe replied, her voice muffled. Sarah entered to find Zoe at her desk, textbooks spread out before her. The room was immaculate, as always, every item in its place. But something caught Sarah's eye, a small duffel bag partially hidden under the bed. "How's the studying going?" Sarah asked, perching on the edge of the bed. Zoe shrugged, her pen tapping rhythmically against her notebook. "It's fine, just a lot to cover." Sarah took a deep breath. "Zoe, honey, I can't help but feel like something's bothering you. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? No matter what it is." For a moment, Zoe's facade cracked. She turned to face her mother, and Sarah saw a glimpse of fear in her daughter's eyes. But just as quickly it was gone, replaced by a practiced smile. "I'm fine, Mom, really. Just stressed about finals and college applications. You don't need to worry." Sarah wanted to push further, to break through the wall Zoe had erected, but she held back. "Okay, sweetheart, but I'm here if you need me, always." As she left the room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she had just missed a crucial opportunity. The image of that hidden duffel bag lingered in her mind, a silent sentinel holding secrets she couldn't begin to fathom. In the quiet of the night, as Sarah lay awake listening to the sounds of the house settling, she thought about the intricate dance of motherhood, the delicate balance between trust and protection, between allowing independence and offering guidance. She had always prided herself on her close relationship with Zoe, on being the kind of mother her daughter could confide in. But now, as doubt crept in like a thief in the night, Sarah wondered if she had been naive. What secrets could Zoe be hiding? And more importantly, how could she help her daughter if Zoe wouldn't let her in? As sleep finally claimed her, Sarah's dreams were troubled, filled with shadowy figures and distant cries for help. In the realm between wakefulness and slumber, a mother's intuition stirred, sensing the storm that was gathering on the horizon. Little did Sarah know that in the coming days, her world would be turned upside down. The photographs hidden in that innocent-looking duffel bag would soon come to light, forcing her to confront a reality she could never have imagined. The call to 911 loomed in the future, a desperate act that would set in motion a chain of events that would test the very foundations of their family. But for now, in the quiet of the Thompson household, the secrets remained hidden, waiting to be uncovered. The stage was set for a drama that would challenge everything Sarah thought she knew about her daughter, about herself, and about the lengths a mother would go to protect her child. The following week brought a subtle shift in the Thompson household, like the first tremors before an earthquake. Sarah, ever attuned to the rhythms of her family, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss with Zoe. It was in the little things, the almost imperceptible changes that only a mother's keen eye would notice. Monday morning dawned gray and drizzly, matching Sarah's mood as she prepared breakfast. The kitchen, usually filled with chatter and laughter, was unnaturally quiet. Lily sat at the island, nose buried in a book, while Zoe pushed her cereal around the bowl, barely eating. "Zoe, honey," Sarah began, her voice gentle. "You've hardly touched your breakfast. Are you feeling okay?" Zoe's head snapped up as if startled from deep thought. "Oh, yeah, just not very hungry." She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Big test today, you know." "Nervous stomach," Sarah nodded, unconvinced. "Well, make sure you eat something before lunch. You need your strength." As Zoe grabbed her backpack and headed for the door, Sarah called out, "Don't forget, we're supposed to go shopping for your graduation dress this afternoon." Zoe paused, her hand on the doorknob. "Oh, right. Can we rain check? I promised Ashley I'd help her study after school." Before Sarah could respond, Zoe was gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click. Sarah stood in the kitchen, a strange hollowness settling in her chest. Zoe had been looking forward to that shopping trip for weeks. It wasn't like her to forget, let alone cancel. "Mom?" Lily's voice broke through her thoughts. "Is Zoe okay?" Sarah plastered on a reassuring smile. "Of course, sweetie, she's just busy with school. Now let's get you ready for your day." As the week progressed, Sarah found herself cataloging a growing list of concerns. Zoe, usually meticulous about her appearance, began wearing oversized hoodies and sweatpants to school. Her vibrant social life seemed to have ground to a halt, with no mentions of friends or plans. Even her phone, typically buzzing with notifications, remained eerily silent. On Wednesday evening, Sarah was folding laundry when she noticed something odd about Zoe's clothes. Several of her favorite tops were missing, and a pair of jeans had a strange stain that looked suspiciously like blood. "Zoe," Sarah called, climbing the stairs with the laundry basket. "Can I come in?" "Just a sec." Zoe's muffled voice came through the door, followed by the sound of hurried movement. When Sarah entered, Zoe was sitting at her desk, an open textbook before her. The room smelled faintly of perfume, as if it had just been sprayed. "I was just wondering about some of your clothes," Sarah began, setting the basket down. "I couldn't find your blue blouse and these jeans." "Oh, I lent the blouse to Ashley," Zoe interrupted quickly. "And I must have spilled something on those jeans. I'll take care of it." Sarah nodded slowly, her eyes scanning the room. Everything looked normal, but something felt off. As she turned to leave, she noticed Zoe's hand trembling slightly as she turned a page in her book. That night, as Sarah recounted the day's events to David over the phone, she couldn't keep the worry from her voice. "I don't know, David. It's like she's a different person. She's distant, secretive. I'm worried." David's sigh crackled through the line. "Sarah, honey, she's 17. It's probably just typical teenage stuff. Don't you remember what it was like?" "This feels different," Sarah insisted. "I just wish you were here. Maybe you could talk to her." "I'll be home this weekend," David promised. "We'll figure it out together, okay?" As Sarah hung up, she couldn't shake the feeling that by the time David got home, it might be too late. Something was happening with Zoe, something beyond normal teenage angst. The question was, what? Thursday brought another troubling incident. Sarah was balancing her checkbook when she noticed a discrepancy. There was less money in the account than there should be. Frowning, she combed through the transactions, finding several ATM withdrawals she didn't recognize. Her first thought was identity theft, but as she looked closer, she realized the withdrawals had been made with her card. The one she kept in her purse, the one Zoe sometimes borrowed for emergencies. Sarah's heart raced as she confronted them. Possibility that her daughter might be taking money without permission. But for what? The amount wasn't huge, but it was significant enough to raise alarm bells. That afternoon, when Zoe came home from school, Sarah steeled herself for a confrontation. But as Zoe walked through the door, Sarah's resolve crumbled. Her daughter looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Her shoulders slumped as if carrying an invisible weight. "Zoe," Sarah began, her voice soft. "Is everything okay? You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" For a moment, something flickered in Zoe's eyes. Fear, guilt. But it was gone so quickly Sarah thought she might have imagined it. "Everything's fine, Mom," Zoe replied, her voice flat. "I'm just tired. I think I'm going to lie down for a bit." As Zoe retreated to her room, Sarah stood in the hallway, feeling more helpless than ever. Her daughter was slipping away, and she didn't know how to reach her. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, her mind raced with possibilities. Was Zoe in trouble at school? Was she being bullied? Or was it something worse? The missing clothes, the secretive behavior, the unexplained withdrawals. A terrible thought began to form in Sarah's mind, one she didn't want to contemplate. Could Zoe be involved with drugs? The very idea made Sarah's stomach churn, but she couldn't dismiss it. It would explain so much: the mood swings, the isolation, the need for money. But how could her bright, ambitious daughter have fallen into such a trap? As dawn broke on Friday morning, Sarah made a decision. She couldn't stand by and watch her daughter spiral any longer. Today, she would get to the bottom of whatever was going on with Zoe, no matter what it took. Little did Sarah know that her world was about to be turned upside down. The truth hidden in Zoe's room was far more shocking than anything she could have imagined. In just a few short hours, Sarah would find herself staring at photographs that would shatter her perception of her daughter and drive her to make that fateful call to 911. The stage was set for a revelation that would test the limits of a mother's love and forever change the Thompson family. As Sarah prepared for the day ahead, the secrets lurking in her daughter's room waited to be uncovered, ticking like a time bomb ready to explode. The Friday that would change everything dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside the Thompson home. Sarah moved through her morning routine on autopilot, her mind preoccupied with the confrontation she knew lay ahead. As she poured coffee into her travel mug, she noticed Zoe's untouched breakfast plate on the counter. Her daughter had left for school early, mumbling something about a study group. Sarah's shift at the hospital seemed to drag on endlessly. Every beep of a monitor, every call over the intercom made her jump, half expecting news about Zoe. By the time she clocked out, her nerves were frayed to the breaking point. Driving home, Sarah rehearsed what she would say to Zoe. She wanted to be firm but understanding, to create a safe space for her daughter to open up. But as she pulled into the driveway, she was surprised to see Zoe's car already there. It was barely 3 p.m. Zoe should still be in class. Entering the house, Sarah called out, "Zoe, are you home?" No answer. Heart racing, Sarah climbed the stairs. As she approached Zoe's room, she heard muffled sounds. Was that crying? She knocked softly. "Zoe, honey, can I come in?" "Go away." Zoe's voice was thick with tears. Torn between respecting her daughter's privacy and her growing concern, Sarah hesitated. Then she heard it, a sharp intake of breath followed by a sound of pain. Mother's instinct took over and she pushed the door open. The scene that greeted her made Sarah's blood run cold. Zoe sat on the floor, surrounded by clothes and papers strewn about. Her sleeve was rolled up, revealing angry red marks on her arm. In her hand was a small blade. "Oh, Zoe," Sarah gasped, rushing to her daughter's side. "What have you done?" Zoe's head snapped up, her eyes wide with fear and shame. "Mom, I can explain." But before she could say more, Sarah's eyes landed on something that made her forget how to breathe. Peeking out from under a pile of clothes was a corner of a photograph that clearly showed Zoe, but in a way Sarah had never seen her before. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for the photo. As she pulled it free, more spilled out, creating a horrifying collage on the bedroom floor. Each image was worse than the last. Zoe in compromising positions, with people Sarah didn't recognize, in places that looked dangerous and seedy. What is this?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Zoe burst into fresh tears, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Sarah's mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The missing clothes, the withdrawn money, the secretive behavior. It all started to fall into a terrifying pattern. But she needed to hear it from Zoe. "Zoe, please," Sarah said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Tell me what's going on. Who are these people? Are they forcing you to do this?" Zoe's sobs subsided into hiccups as she struggled to speak. It started online. This guy, he seemed so nice at first. He said I was beautiful, that I could be a model. He promised me money, fame. I was so stupid, Mom. Sarah's heart broke as she listened to her daughter's story unfold. How the online compliments had turned into requests for photos, then demands for meetings. How threats and blackmail had kept Zoe trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. He said if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd send the pictures to everyone at school, to you and Dad. He said he'd hurt Lily if I told anyone. Zoe's voice was hollow, defeated. Sarah pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, her own tears falling freely now. "Oh, my baby, my precious girl. Why didn't you come to me? We could have faced this together." "I was so ashamed," Zoe whispered. I thought you'd hate me." "Never," Sarah said fiercely. "I could never hate you, Zoe. We're going to get through this, I promise." As she held her broken daughter, Sarah's mind raced with the implications of what she'd discovered. This wasn't just about Zoe anymore. If there was an organized group exploiting young girls, others could be in danger too. With a heavy heart, Sarah knew what she had to do. Still holding Zoe with one arm, she reached for her phone with the other. Her fingers shook as she dialed the numbers she never thought she'd have to call for her own family. "Wyan, what's your emergency?" Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes locked with Zoe's terrified gaze. "My name is Sarah Thompson. I need to report a case of child exploitation. It's my daughter." As Sarah began to explain the situation to the dispatcher, she felt a shift in the air. The world as she knew it was ending, but from its ashes, a new chapter was beginning. One where secrets would be exposed, trust would be tested, and the true strength of a mother's love would be revealed. The sound of sirens in the distance grew louder, heralding the arrival of a storm that would forever change the Thompson family. Sarah held Zoe tighter, bracing for the impact of what was to come. The journey ahead would be long and painful, but in that moment Sarah made a silent vow. She would stop at nothing to protect her daughter and bring those responsible to justice. The stage was set for a battle that would test the limits of love, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. As the first police car pulled up outside, Sarah and Zoe clung to each other, united in fear but also in the hope that somehow, some way, they would find a path through this darkness together. The wail of sirens pierced the quiet suburban afternoon as two police cruisers pulled up to the Thompson residence. Neighbors peered out from behind curtains, curiosity and concern etched on their faces. For Sarah, holding Zoe in her arms, the sound marked the point of no return. Their private nightmare was about to become very public. "Mom," Zoe whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm scared." Sarah stroked her daughter's hair, trying to project a calm she didn't feel. "I know, sweetheart, but we're going to face this together. I'm right here with you." The sharp rap on the front door echoed through the house. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Stay here," she told Zoe gently. "I'll be right back." As Sarah descended the stairs, her mind raced. How would she explain this to the officers, to David, to Lily? The weight of the situation threatened to crush her, but she pushed forward, drawing strength from the fierce love she felt for her daughter. Opening the door, Sarah was met by two officers, a tall, broad-shouldered man with kind eyes, and a younger woman with a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mrs. Thompson," the male officer asked. At Sarah's nod, he continued, "I'm Officer James Reeves, and this is my partner, Officer Samantha Chen. We received a call about a possible case of child exploitation." Sarah's voice caught in her throat. Hearing it stated so officially made it all too real. "Yes," she managed. It's my daughter Zoe. She's upstairs." As Sarah led the officers into the house, she could hear Officer Chen radioing for additional support, mentioning words like evidence collection and victim services. Each term felt like a physical blow. Upstairs, they found Zoe huddled on her bed, arms wrapped tightly around herself. The room was still in disarray, the damning photographs scattered on the floor. Officer Reeves's eyes widened slightly at the scene, but his voice remained calm and professional. "Zoe," he said softly. "I'm Officer Reeves. We're here to help you. Can you tell us what happened?" For a moment, Zoe remained silent, her eyes darting between the officers and her mother. Then, in a small voice, she began to speak. As the story unfolded, the online grooming, the escalating demands, the threats and blackmail, Sarah felt as though she was hearing it for the first time all over again. Each revelation was a fresh wound to her heart. Officer Chen took notes, while Officer Reeves listened intently, occasionally asking gentle but probing questions. Sarah marveled at their professionalism, the way they created a safe space for Zoe to share her traumatic experiences. As Zoe spoke about the man who had orchestrated her exploitation, Sarah's fear began to give way to anger. How dare someone prey on her child? How many other girls had fallen victim to this monster? "Do you know his real name?" Officer Chen asked. Zoe shook her head. "He always went by Jay online, but I heard the others call him Marcus sometimes." "Others?" Officer Reeves leaned forward. "There were more people involved?" Zoe nodded, tears welling up again. "At the parties. There were other men, and other girls too." She looked at Sarah, her eyes filled with shame and fear. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you, but I was so scared." Sarah moved to sit beside Zoe, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's not your fault, sweetheart. None of this is your fault." Officer Reeves cleared his throat. "Zoe, Mrs. Thompson, I know this is difficult, but what you've told us is incredibly important. Sounds like we may be dealing with a larger trafficking operation." He turned to his partner. "Chen, call it in. We need to get SVU involved." As Officer Chen stepped out to make the call, a commotion downstairs caught everyone's attention. A familiar voice called out, panic evident in its tone. "Sarah, Zoe, what's going on? Why are there police cars outside?" Sarah's heart sank. David was home early. Officer Reeves looked to Sarah. "Mrs. Thompson, would you like me to speak with your husband?" Sarah shook her head. "No, I should be the one to tell him." She turned to Zoe. "Will you be okay here with Officer Reeves for a few minutes?" Zoe nodded, looking small and vulnerable on the bed. Sarah placed a gentle kiss on her forehead before steeling herself to face David. As she descended the stairs, Sarah felt as though she was moving through a dream, or rather, a nightmare. How could she possibly explain to David that their worst fears as parents had come true, that their daughter had been victimized in the most horrific way? David stood in the foyer, his face a mask of confusion and worry. When he saw Sarah, he rushed forward. "Sarah, what's happening? Is everyone okay?" Sarah took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "David, we need to talk. It's about Zoe. Something terrible has happened." As Sarah began to explain the situation, she watched the emotions play across her husband's face. Disbelief, horror, anger, and finally, a grief so profound, it brought tears to her eyes. "How?" David choked out. "How did we not know? How did we let this happen to our little girl?" Sarah shook her head, her own guilt threatening to overwhelm her. "I don't know. But David, she needs us now. We have to be strong for her." Together they climbed the stairs, each step feeling like a mountain to overcome. As they entered Zoe's room, they found her speaking softly with Officer Reeves, her posture slightly more relaxed than before. When Zoe saw her father, fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Daddy," she whispered, sounding younger than her 17 years. David crossed the room in 2 strides, gathering Zoe in his arms. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here. We're going to get through this together." As the Thompson family clung to each other, seeking comfort in their embrace, Officer Chen re-entered the room. Her expression was grave. "I just got off the phone with the Special Victims Unit," she announced. "They're sending a team over and—" She hesitated, looking at Zoe with sympathy. "They think this case might be connected to several others they've been investigating. Zoe, your bravery in coming forward might help save other girls from going through what you did." The weight of this statement hung in the air. Zoe's ordeal was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. There would be more questions, investigations, possibly even a trial. But in that moment, a tiny spark of hope flickered to life. Sarah looked at her daughter, seeing not just the pain and fear, but also the innate strength that had allowed her to survive. She thought of the other victims out there, still trapped in the nightmare Zoe had escaped. And she made a silent vow. They would not only survive this, they would fight back. For Zoe, for their family, and for all the other victims who needed a voice. As the sound of more sirens approached, heralding the arrival of the SVU team, the Thompson family held each other tighter. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but they would walk it together, one step at a time. The nightmare that had been hidden in shadows was now exposed to the light. And in that light, painful as it was, lay the first seeds of healing, justice, and hope. The arrival of the Special Victims Unit transformed the Thompson home into a hive of activity. Detective Olivia Benson, a seasoned veteran with kind eyes and a commanding presence, took charge of the scene. Her partner, Detective Elliot Carisi, began coordinating with the evidence collection team. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," Detective Benson addressed Sarah and David, her voice gentle but firm. "I know this is overwhelming, but we need to move quickly. Every piece of information Zoe can provide could be crucial in tracking down the perpetrators." Sarah nodded, her arms still wrapped protectively around Zoe. "We understand. What do you need us to do?" "First, we need to get Zoe to the hospital for a medical exam," Detective Benson explained. "It's standard procedure in cases like this, and it's important for both her health and for gathering evidence." Zoe tensed at these words, her eyes wide with fear. "Mom, I don't want to go. Please don't make me." Sarah's heart broke at the panic in her daughter's voice. She knelt down in front of Zoe, taking her hands. "Sweetheart, I know you're scared, but this is important. The doctors need to make sure you're okay, and it might help catch the people who hurt you. I'll be with you every step of the way, I promise." After a moment of hesitation, Zoe gave a small nod. Sarah looked up at Detective Benson. "Can I ride with her in the ambulance?" "Of course," the detective assured her. "Mr. Thompson, we'll need you to stay here with Detective Carisi. We have some questions about Zoe's routine, her online activities, anything that might help us build a timeline." As paramedics arrived to transport Zoe, Sarah's mind raced. "Wait," she said suddenly. "What about Lily? She'll be home from school soon. She can't see all this." David ran a hand through his hair, the stress evident on his face. "I'll call my sister. She can pick Lily up and keep her for the night. We'll figure out how to tell her later." The next few hours passed in a blur for Sarah. The ride to the hospital, holding Zoe's hand as the paramedics asked gentle but probing questions. The sterile exam room, where a kind-faced doctor named Dr. Melinda Warner explained each step of the process. Sarah's heart ached as she watched Zoe endure the invasive examination, wishing she could take away her daughter's pain and fear. Meanwhile, back at the Thompson house, David found himself reliving the past few months through a new, horrifying lens. Every late night, every canceled plan, every mood swing now took on a sinister significance. "Did you notice any changes in Zoe's behavior recently?" Detective Carisi asked, his notebook at the ready. David nodded, his voice hollow. "She became more withdrawn, spent a lot of time in her room. We thought it was just typical teenage stuff, stress from school." His voice trailed off, the weight of guilt pressing down on him. Detective Carisi's voice was sympathetic but firm. "Mr. Thompson, it's important to understand that predators like this are experts at manipulation. They know how to exploit normal teenage behavior to hide their actions. This is not your fault." As the day wore on, more details of Zoe's ordeal came to light. The online grooming that had started months ago on a seemingly innocent social media platform. The gradual escalation from flattery to coercion. The network of predators who shared photos and videos of their victims. At the hospital, Detective Benson gently questioned Zoe, with Sarah by her side for support. "Zoe, can you tell me about the first time you met Jay in person?" Zoe's voice trembled as she recounted the story. "It was supposed to be a modeling gig," he said. "He said I'd make a lot of money. But when I got there, it wasn't a studio. It was a house, and there were other men." As Zoe continued, Sarah had to fight the urge to cover her ears, to shut out the horrific details of what her daughter had endured. But she forced herself to listen, to bear witness to Zoe's pain and bravery. Back at the house, the evidence collection team made a crucial discovery. Hidden in the back of Zoe's closet was a burner phone, the primary means of communication between Zoe and her abusers. "This is big," Detective Carisi told David. "The tech team might be able to trace contacts, maybe even locations where Zoe was taken." As night fell, the Thompson house finally quieted. The police had gone, leaving behind a card with contact information and promises to keep the family updated on the investigation. David sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at a cup of cold coffee, when he heard the front door open. Sarah entered, looking exhausted beyond measure. "Alone. Where's Zoe?" David asked, alarmed. "They're keeping her overnight for observation," Sarah explained, her voice hoarse from hours of talking and crying. "I didn't want to leave her, but she insisted. Said she needed some time to process everything." David enveloped his wife in a tight embrace, feeling her body shake with silent sobs. "What do we do now?" he whispered. Sarah pulled back, wiping her eyes. "We fight," she said, a steely determination in her voice. "We fight for our daughter and for every other child these monsters have hurt. Whatever it takes, we're going to get through this and make sure justice is served." As they held each other, in the quiet kitchen, Sarah and David knew that their lives had been forever altered. The road ahead would be long and painful, filled with legal battles, therapy sessions, and the monumental task of helping Zoe heal. But in that moment, they made a silent pact. They would face this challenge head-on, drawing strength from their love for each other and for their daughters. The predators who had torn their family apart had underestimated the power of a parent's love and the resilience of the human spirit. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, Sarah and David Thompson prepared themselves for the battle ahead. They didn't know what challenges the coming days would bring, but they knew one thing for certain: they would face them together, as a family. The nightmare had been exposed, but with that exposure came the first fragile tendrils of hope. Hope for healing, hope for justice, and hope for a future where Zoe could reclaim her life and her strength. The journey would be difficult, but it had begun, and the Thompsons were ready to take it one step at a time. Certainly I'll continue with Chapter 7 of the story. I'll maintain the emotional intensity and narrative structure established in the previous chapters. Chapter 7. The soft beep of hospital monitors greeted Sarah as she entered Zoe's room early the next morning. Her daughter lay curled on her side, dark circles under her eyes, testament to a sleepless night. Sarah's heart ached at the sight, but she forced a smile as Zoe stirred. "Mom?" Zoe's voice was small, fragile. "I'm here, sweetheart," Sarah said, taking a seat beside the bed. She reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from Zoe's face. "How are you feeling?" Zoe's laugh was hollow. "Like my whole world has fallen apart." Sarah fought back tears. "I know it feels that way now, but we're going to get through this together." A knock at the door interrupted them. Detective Benson entered, her face sympathetic but determined. "Good morning. I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," Sarah said, although part of her wanted to shield Zoe from any more questions, any more pain. "Zoe," Detective Benson began gently, "I know you've been through a lot, but we need your help. The information you gave us yesterday led to a breakthrough. We've identified several other victims and we're close to locating the main suspects, but we need more details." Zoe's body tensed, and Sarah could see the fear creeping back into her eyes. I don't know if I can," Zoe whispered. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. "You can, sweetheart. You're so much stronger than you know." Over the next hour, Zoe recounted more of her ordeal, each word seeming to drain her further. She described the locations where she'd been taken, the other girls she'd seen, the conversations she'd overheard. Detective Benson listened intently, her notebook filling with crucial details. "There's one more thing," Zoe said, her voice barely audible. "The man, Jay or Marcus, or whatever his name is. I heard him talking on the phone once. He mentioned something about a big event coming up, something called The Gathering. It sounded important." Detective Benson's eyes widened. "Zoe, this could be huge. You may have just given us the key to bringing down this entire network." As the detective left to relay the new information to her team, Sarah turned to Zoe, overwhelmed with pride and sorrow. "You did so well, honey. I know how hard that was." Zoe's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, what if they come after us? What if they hurt Lily?" Sarah's protective instincts flared. "That's not going to happen. The police are going to catch these people, and we're going to keep you safe, I promise." Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. With a text from David. "Lily asking questions, don't know what to tell her. Need you home." Reality crashed back in. They still had to explain this nightmare to their younger daughter. How could they possibly shield Lily from the horror while still being honest? "Sweetheart," Sarah said, "the doctors want to keep you here for another day. Your dad needs me at home to talk to Lily. Will you be okay if I go for a little while?" Zoe nodded, though Sarah could see the fear in her eyes. "Yeah, I'll be fine. Tell Lily. Tell her I'm sorry." Sarah's heart broke at those words. "You have nothing to be sorry for, Zoe. Nothing." As Sarah left the hospital, her mind raced. How would they explain this to Lily? How could they protect both their daughters from the storm that was still raging around them? And what about the other victims, the other families whose lives had been shattered by these predators? The weight of it all threatened to crush her, but Sarah squared her shoulders. Her family needed her to be strong, to be their rock in this tempest, and she would be, no matter what it took. Driving home, Sarah steeled herself for the difficult conversation ahead. She and David would have to find a way to explain the unexplainable to Lily, to shatter her innocence, while still preserving her sense of safety in the world. As she pulled into the driveway, Sarah took a deep breath. The battle was far from over. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning. But with love, determination, and the unbreakable bonds of family, they would face whatever came next. Little did Sarah know that the gathering Zoe had mentioned would soon become the centerpiece of a massive police operation, one that would put her family in the crosshairs of dangerous criminals desperate to protect their evil enterprise. The Thompson family's ordeal was far from over, and the true test of their strength and resilience was yet to come. The Thompson house stood silent as Sarah pulled into the driveway, a stark contrast to the turmoil she knew awaited her inside. The weight of the impending conversation with Lily pressed heavily on her shoulders as she made her way to the front door. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that her world is about to be turned upside down? As Sarah entered, she found David, pacing in the living room, his face etched with worry. Lily sat on the couch, her small frame tense with confusion and fear. "Mom!" Lily exclaimed, jumping up. "What's going on? Where's Zoe? Why won't anyone tell me anything?" Sarah's heart clenched at the panic in her younger daughter's voice. She sat down next to Lily, gesturing for David to join them. "Sweetheart," Sarah began, her voice gentle but firm. "Something very serious has happened, and we need to talk about it. It involves Zoe, and it's going to be hard to hear." David took Lily's hand, his voice cracking slightly as he spoke. "Lily, your sister has been hurt by some very bad people. She's safe now, but she's going to need our help and support to get better." Lily's eyes widened, tears beginning to form. "Hurt? How? Is that why there were police cars here yesterday?" Sarah nodded, choosing her words carefully. "Yes, honey. Zoe met someone online who pretended to be her friend. This person and others working with them tricked Zoe into doing things she didn't want to do. They took advantage of her and scared her into keeping it a secret. But why didn't she tell us?" Lily's voice was small, confused. "The bad people threatened to hurt us if she did," David explained, his jaw clenching at the admission. "Zoe was trying to protect us, even though she was scared and hurting." Lily's face crumpled, tears now flowing freely. "Is Zoe going to be okay? Can I see her?" Sarah pulled Lily into a tight embrace, her own eyes wet with unshed tears. "Zoe is in the hospital right now, but not because she's physically hurt. The doctors want to make sure she's okay emotionally. And yes, you'll be able to see her soon. But Lily, it's important that you understand something." Sarah pulled back, looking her younger daughter in the eyes. "What happened to Zoe is not her fault. The people who hurt her are criminals, and the police are working hard to catch them. But Zoe is going to need a lot of love and support from all of us. She might act differently for a while, and that's okay. We need to be patient and understanding." David added, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "And Lily, we want you to know that you're safe. We're going to do everything we can to protect both you and Zoe. If you ever feel scared or have questions, you can always come to..." "Dweh," Lily nodded, her young face solemn with a maturity beyond her years. "I want to help. What can I do?" Sarah felt a surge of pride at her daughter's strength. Just being there for Zoe, showing her you love her no matter what. That's the most important thing you can do. As the family sat together, processing the weight of the situation, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a text from Detective Benson. "New. Lead on the gathering. Need to speak with you and Zoe ASAP." Sarah's stomach tightened. Just when they thought they might have a moment to breathe, to begin the process of healing, it seemed the investigation was ramping up. "David," she said, her voice low, "I need to get back to the hospital. The detectives have new information." David nodded, understanding the urgency. "Go, I'll stay with Lily." As Sarah prepared to leave, Lily's voice stopped her. "Mom, tell Zoe I love her and that I'm proud of her for being so brave." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes as she hugged Lily tightly. "I will, sweetheart. I promise." Driving back to the hospital, Sarah's mind raced. What had the detectives uncovered about the gathering? And more importantly, what would it mean for Zoe and their family? The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges they had never imagined facing. But as Sarah thought of Lily's strength, of David's unwavering support, and of Zoe's incredible resilience, she felt a flicker of hope. They would get through this, no matter what came next. Because that's what families do. They face the darkness together and somehow find their way back to the light. As Sarah pulled into the hospital parking lot, she took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever new information awaited. The battle was far from over, but she was ready to fight. For Zoe, for Lily, for their family, and for all the other victims who had yet to find their voice. The storm might still be raging, but the Thompsons would weather it together. The hospital corridors seemed more oppressive than ever as Sarah made her way to Zoe's room. The weight of Detective Benson's urgent message hung heavy in the air, a reminder that their ordeal was far from over. As she approached Zoe's door, she could hear muffled voices from inside. Detective Benson had already arrived. Sarah paused, taking a deep breath to compose herself before entering. The scene that greeted her was both familiar and jarring. Zoe, small and vulnerable in her hospital bed, and Detective Benson, her face a mask of professional concern. "Mom," Zoe said, her voice tinged with relief and anxiety. "Detective Benson says they have new information about them." Sarah moved quickly to her daughter's side, taking her hand. "I'm here, sweetheart. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." She turned to Detective Benson. "What's going on?" The detective's eyes were grave as she began to speak. "We've uncovered more details about the gathering Zoe mentioned. It appears to be a large-scale event where these predators bring together multiple victims for their clients." Sarah felt Zoe's hand tighten in hers, and she had to fight back the wave of nausea that threatened to overwhelm her. Detective Benson continued, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We believe this event is happening soon, possibly within the next week. If we can infiltrate it, we have a chance to bring down the entire network and rescue dozens of victims." "But what does this mean for Zoe?" Sarah asked, her protective instincts flaring. "Surely you don't expect her to be involved in this operation." The detective hesitated, and in that moment of silence, Sarah's worst fears were confirmed. "We need Zoe's help," Detective Benson said softly. "The information she's provided has been invaluable, but we need more. Details about the location, the people involved, anything she can remember." Zoe's body tensed, and Sarah could see the panic rising in her eyes. "I can't," Zoe whispered. "I can't go back there, even in my mind. Please don't make me." Sarah's heart broke at the fear in her daughter's voice. She turned to Detective Benson, ready to refuse, to shield Zoe from any more trauma. But before she could speak, Zoe surprised them both. "Wait," she said, her voice small but determined. If helping you could save other girls from going through what I did, I want to try." Pride and anguish warred within Sarah as she looked at her daughter. In that moment, she saw not just the scared, hurt girl, but the strong, compassionate young woman Zoe was becoming. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" Sarah asked gently. "You don't have to do this." Zoe nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm sure I need to do this, for the other girls." Over the next hour, Zoe recounted every detail she could remember about the gathering. Snippets of conversations she'd overheard, descriptions of locations and people. Each word seemed to drain her, but she pressed on, driven by a determination Sarah had never seen before. As Detective Benson prepared to leave, armed with a wealth of new information, she turned to Zoe. "You've been incredibly brave, Zoe. The information you've provided could save lives. We'll keep you updated on the investigation, and I promise you, we'll do everything in our power to bring these people to justice." After the detective left, Sarah held Zoe as she finally allowed herself to break down, sobs racking her body. "I'm so proud of you," Sarah whispered, her own tears falling freely. So proud." As Zoe's tears subsided, she looked up at her mother, a mix of fear and resolve in her eyes. "Mom, what happens now? What if they find out I talked to the police? What if they come after us?" Sarah's protective instincts surged. "We won't let that happen. The police will protect us, and your father and I will do everything in our power to keep you and Lily safe." But even as she spoke the words, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. The looming threat of the gathering, the possibility of retaliation from the predators, the long road of healing that lay ahead for Zoe. It all seemed overwhelming. Yet as she held her daughter close, Sarah felt a steely resolve settle over her. They had already faced the unimaginable, had already taken the first steps towards justice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As the sun began to set outside Zoe's hospital window, casting long shadows across the room, Sarah silently renewed her vow. She would fight for her daughter, for her family, with every ounce of strength she possessed. The battle was far from over, but Sarah Thompson was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did she know that the information Zoe had provided would set in motion a series of events that would test their family's strength, courage, and love in ways they could never have imagined. The storm was gathering strength, and the Thompsons were at its very center. The following days unfolded in a blur of activity and emotion for the Thompson family. Zoe was discharged from the hospital, returning to a home that felt both familiar and alien. The space that had once been her sanctuary now held shadows of painful memories, each corner a potential trigger for her trauma. Sarah and David worked tirelessly to create a safe environment for both their daughters. They installed new security systems, changed routines, and kept in constant contact with Detective Benson. But despite their best efforts, an undercurrent of tension ran through the household, a constant reminder of the threats that still loomed. On a particularly challenging morning, Sarah found Zoe huddled in the corner of her room, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. "Sweetheart," Sarah said softly, kneeling beside her daughter. "What's wrong?" Zoe looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and haunted. "I can't do this, Mom. Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces. I hear their voices. I feel their hands. On me!" Her voice broke on the last words, a fresh wave of tears spilling down her cheeks. Sarah's heart shattered anew. She gathered Zoe in her arms, rocking her gently as she had when Zoe was small. "I know it's hard, baby. I know, but you're so strong. We're going to get through this together." As she held her daughter, Sarah's mind raced. They had started therapy sessions, both individual and family, but it was clear that Zoe needed more support. The road to healing would be long and arduous. Meanwhile, Lily was struggling to adjust to the new reality of their family life. Sarah often found her hovering near Zoe's room, unsure how to interact with her sister. The carefree bond they once shared seemed stretched to its breaking point. One afternoon, Sarah overheard a conversation between her daughters that both warmed and broke her heart. "Zoe?" Lily's voice was hesitant. Can I come in?" There was a pause before Zoe responded. "Yeah, sure." Sarah peeked around the corner to see Lily tentatively entering Zoe's room, a sketchbook clutched to her chest. I drew something." "For you," Lily said, holding out the book. Zoe took it, her movements slow and careful. As she opened the sketchbook, her breath caught. "Oh, Lily." Sarah craned her neck to see the drawing. It was a picture of the two sisters holding hands, surrounded by a protective circle of hearts. Above them, in Lily's careful handwriting, were the words, "My sister, my hero." Zoe's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time in days, Sarah saw a glimmer of a smile on her face. "Thank you, Lily. This means so much to me." Lily shuffled her feet, then suddenly threw her arms around Zoe in a fierce hug. "I love you, Zoe, no matter what." As Sarah watched her daughter's embrace, she felt a surge of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but moments like these reminded her of the strength and love that bound their family together. The moment was shattered by the sharp ring of the doorbell. Sarah tensed, her protective instincts on high alert. They weren't expecting anyone, and in the wake of recent events, every unexpected visitor was a potential threat. She moved quickly to the front door, peering through the peephole. Her breath caught as she recognized Detective Benson standing on their porch, her expression grave. Sarah opened the door, her heart racing. "Detective, what's happened?" Detective Benson's voice was low and urgent. "Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk. We've received some new information about the gathering, and there's been a development that directly affects your family." As Sarah ushered the detective inside, she felt a chill run down her spine. Just when they had started to find their footing, it seemed the ground was about to shift beneath them once again. Whatever news Detective Benson brought, Sarah knew it would change everything. The battle they thought was nearing its end was only just beginning, and the Thompson family was about to be thrust into the heart of a storm that threatened to tear them apart. But as Sarah called for David and steeled herself for what was to come, she held on to one unshakable truth. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. For Zoe, for Lily, for their family. They would fight with every ounce of strength they possessed. Little did they know that the information Detective Benson was about to share would set in motion a chain of events that would test their resolve, their courage, and the very bonds of their family in ways they could never have imagined. Detective Benson's presence in the Thompson living room cast a palpable tension over the space. Sarah and David sat side by side on the couch, their hands clasped tightly together, while Zoe huddled in an armchair, her eyes wide with apprehension. Lily had been gently but firmly asked to stay in her room, though Sarah suspected she was listening at the top of the stairs. "What's going on, Detective?" David asked, his voice strained with worry. Detective Benson leaned forward, her expression grave. "Based on the information Zoe provided, we've managed to identify several key players in the trafficking ring. One, a man we believe to be Jay or Marcus, has been under surveillance." Zoe visibly flinched at the mention of her abuser's name, and Sarah instinctively moved to her daughter's side, wrapping a protective arm around her shoulders. The detective continued, "Last night our team intercepted a series of encrypted messages. We've decrypted most of them and, well, there's no easy way to say this. They know Zoe has talked to the police." The room fell silent, the implications of those words hanging heavy in the air. Sarah felt Zoe begin to tremble beneath her arm. "What does this mean?" Sarah asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Are we in danger?" Detective Benson's face was a mask of professional concern. "We don't believe there's an immediate threat, but we can't rule out the possibility. These people are desperate, and they have a lot to lose. We're going to increase patrols in your neighborhood and assign a protective detail to your family." David stood up abruptly, running a hand through his hair. "This is insane. We're talking about our children here. Isn't there more you can do? Can't you arrest these bastards now?" "David," Sarah said softly, trying to calm her husband even as her own heart raced with fear. Detective Benson held up a hand. "Mr. Thompson, I understand your frustration. Believe me, there's nothing I want more than to put these criminals behind bars right now. But we need solid evidence to make the charges stick. If we move too soon, they could slip through our fingers." Zoe spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's my fault. I should never have said anything. Now everyone's in danger because of me." "No, sweetheart," Sarah said fiercely, turning to face her daughter. "None of this is your fault. You did the right thing by speaking up. The only people to blame are the ones who hurt you." Detective Benson nodded in agreement. "Your mother's right, Zoe. Your bravery has given us our best chance at bringing down this entire network. You've probably saved countless other girls from going through what you did." As the detective outlined the security measures being put in place, Sarah's mind whirled. How had their lives come to this? Armed guards, encrypted messages, the constant threat of danger. It was like something out of a nightmare. But as she looked at Zoe, saw the mix of fear and determination in her eyes, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. They would get through this no matter what it took. After Detective Benson left, the family sat in stunned silence for several long moments. It was Lily who broke the quiet, her small voice carrying from the top of the stairs. "Is it safe to come down now?" Sarah exchanged a glance with David, seeing her own conflicted emotions mirrored in his eyes. How much should they tell their younger daughter? How could they protect her innocence while still keeping her safe? "Come on down, sweetheart," David called, his voice gentle. As Lily descended the stairs, Sarah made a silent vow. No matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter what dangers they faced, she would fight with everything she had to keep her family safe and whole. The storm clouds were gathering, darker and more ominous than ever before. But the Thompsons would weather it together, bound by love, united in their determination to see justice done. Little did they know that the true test of their strength and resilience was yet to come. The information about the gathering was about to blow the case wide open, thrusting the Thompson family into the heart of a dangerous operation that would push them to their very limits. As night fell over their home, now a fortress under police protection, Sarah held her family close. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it as one. The battle for justice, for healing, for their very future was far from over. But Sarah Thompson was ready to fight, with every fiber of her being, for the sake of her daughters and for all the other victims who had yet to find their voice. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change their lives forever, and the Thompsons stood at the center of the gathering storm. The following week brought a tense new normal to the Thompson household. The constant presence of police officers outside their home served as a persistent reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond their walls. Inside, the family grappled with their new reality, each member processing the situation in their own way. Sarah found herself constantly on edge, jumping at every unexpected sound. Her eyes would dart to the windows, scanning for any sign of threat. Sleep became a luxury she could ill afford, spending nights pacing the hallway between her daughter's rooms, a silent guardian against unseen enemies. David threw himself into work, taking on extra shifts at the high school where he counseled troubled teens. His days were filled with helping other people's children, while his nights were consumed by worry for his own. The irony wasn't lost on him, and it ate away at his normally calm demeanor. Zoe, for her part, oscillated between periods of withdrawn silence and bursts of frenetic energy. She'd spend hours curled up in her room, then suddenly emerge with a desperate need to be around her family, as if reassuring herself they were still there, still safe. One afternoon, Sarah found Zoe in the kitchen, furiously scrubbing at an already spotless counter. "Sweetheart," Sarah said gently, placing a hand on Zoe's arm. "I think that counter's as clean as it's going to get." Zoe's movements stilled, her knuckles white around the sponge. I need to do something, Mom. I can't just sit around waiting for whatever's going to happen next." Sarah's heart ached at the frustration and fear in her daughter's voice. "I know, honey. We all feel that way. But wearing yourself out isn't going to help." Zoe turned to face her mother, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "How do you do it? Mom? How do you stay so strong?" Sarah pulled Zoe into a tight embrace, her own eyes welling up. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm not always strong. I'm scared too. But I keep going because I have to. Because you and Lily need me to. We all draw strength from each other." As they stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, a commotion outside caught their attention. Sarah's heart leapt into her throat as she heard raised voices and the sound of running feet. "Stay here," she told Zoe firmly, moving towards the front door. But before she could reach it, it burst open, revealing Detective Benson, her face flushed with urgency. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, slightly out of breath, "we need to move you and your family now." "What? Why? What's happening?" Sarah asked, her mind racing with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Detective Benson's expression was grim. "We've intercepted communications suggesting an imminent threat to your family. We're moving you to a safe house until we can neutralize the danger." The next few minutes passed in a blur of activity. David was called home from work. Lily was collected from a friend's house, and the family was given mere moments to pack essential items. As they were ushered into an unmarked police van, Zoe gripped Sarah's hand tightly. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry, this is all because of me." Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, her voice fierce with love and determination. "No, Zoe. This is because of the criminals who hurt you, and we're going to get through this together." As the van pulled away from their home, Sarah looked back at the house that had been their sanctuary, now potentially tainted by the reach of those who sought to harm them. She didn't know what lay ahead, where they were going, or how long they'd be gone. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would do whatever it took to keep her family safe. The Thompson family was being thrust into the unknown, away from everything familiar and comforting. But as Sarah looked around at the faces of her husband and daughters, she saw not just fear, but also resilience, determination, and love. They were stepping into the heart of the storm, but they would weather it together. And somehow, some way, they would find their way back to the light. Little did they know that their journey was far from over. The safe house would bring new challenges, unexpected allies, and revelations that would shake the very foundation of their family. The battle for justice was about to enter a new, more dangerous phase, and the Thompsons were at the very center of it all. The safe house, a nondescript suburban home on the outskirts of the city, felt like a world away from the life the Thompsons had known. As they stepped inside, escorted by Detective Benson and her team, the reality of their situation hit home with startling clarity. "I know this is difficult," Detective Benson said, her voice softened with empathy. "But I promise you, this is the safest place for your family right now." Sarah nodded numbly, her arm wrapped protectively around Lily's shoulders. The younger girl's eyes were wide with a mix of fear and excitement, the gravity of the situation not fully registering in her 12-year-old mind. David, ever the pragmatist, was already questioning the detective about security measures and protocols. "How long do you expect us to stay here? What about our jobs? The girls' school?" "We're working on those details, Mr. Thompson," Detective Benson assured him. "For now, we need you to focus on settling in and staying safe. We'll have round-the-clock surveillance and a direct line to our team if you need anything." As the detective walked them through the house, pointing out security features and explaining the rules they needed to follow, Sarah couldn't help but notice Zoe's silence. Her older daughter trailed behind the group, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, eyes darting nervously from room to room. Once they were alone, the family gathered in the living room, the unfamiliar surroundings amplifying the tension that hung in the air. "Well," David said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "I guess this is home for now." Lily, always quick to find the silver lining, piped up, "It's like we're on a secret mission, like spies in the movies." Sarah managed a weak chuckle, grateful for her younger daughter's resilience. "That's one way to look at it, sweetheart." But Zoe's quiet voice cut through the moment of levity. "This isn't a game, Lily. We're here because of me. Because I put our whole family in danger." "Zoe, no," Sarah said firmly, moving to kneel in front of her daughter. "We've been over this. You are not to blame for any of this. The only people responsible are the ones who hurt you." David joined them, placing a comforting hand on Zoe's shoulder. "Your mother's right, honey. We're here because we love you, and we're going to get through this together." As the day wore on, the family tried to establish some semblance of normalcy in their new surroundings. Sarah busied herself arranging their meager belongings, while David set up a makeshift office in one of the spare rooms. Lily explored every nook and cranny of the house, her natural curiosity temporarily overriding her fear. But Zoe remained withdrawn, spending most of her time curled up on the window seat in her assigned room, staring out at the unfamiliar neighborhood with haunted eyes. That night, as Sarah made her usual rounds checking on the girls before bed, she paused outside Zoe's room. The sound of muffled sobs reached her ears, breaking her heart anew. She knocked softly before entering. "Zoe, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Zoe looked up, her face streaked with tears. "I can't do this, Mom. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces. I hear their voices. And now because of me, we're all in danger. You and Dad, Lily, your lives are completely disrupted because of what happened to me." Sarah sat on the bed, pulling Zoe into a tight embrace. "Listen to me, Zoe. What happened to you was not your fault. And our lives aren't disrupted because of you, but because of the criminals who hurt you. We're here, in this house, because we love you and will do anything to keep you safe." As she held her daughter, rocking her gently like she used to when Zoe was small, Sarah felt a fierce determination well up inside her. They would get through this. They would see justice done. and somehow they would find a way to heal. But even as she comforted Zoe, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The safe house might protect them from physical harm, but the emotional toll of their ordeal was only starting to make itself known. As the night deepened around them, the Thompson family tried to find rest in their strange new surroundings. But the shadows of what they'd been through and the uncertainty of what was yet to come loomed large in the darkness. Little did they know that the safe house would soon become the stage for revelations that would shake their family to its core, bringing both new challenges and unexpected sources of strength. The storm they were weathering was far from over, and the true test of their resilience was yet to come. The days in the safe house blurred together, each one a delicate balance between maintaining a semblance of normalcy and grappling with the ever-present threat that had driven them from their home. As the Thompson family settled into their new routine, the strain of their situation began to show in unexpected ways. One morning, about a week into their stay, Sarah woke to the sound of hushed voices coming from the kitchen. Curious and slightly alarmed, she made her way downstairs, her bare feet silent on the carpeted steps. She found David and Detective Benson deep in conversation, their faces etched with concern. They fell silent as she entered, exchanging a glance that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice tight with apprehension. David ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Sarah recognized as a sign of his distress. "Sarah, honey, sit down. There's something we need to discuss." As Sarah took a seat at the kitchen table, Detective Benson cleared her throat. "Mrs. Thompson, we've received some new information about the gathering. It's more complex than we initially thought." Sarah's heart raced as the detective laid out the details. The event wasn't just a single gathering, but a series of them, spread out across several locations. The trafficking ring was larger and more sophisticated than they had realized, with connections reaching into law enforcement and local government. "What does this mean for us?" Sarah asked, her mind immediately going to her daughters sleeping upstairs. "Are we in more danger?" Detective Benson's face was grim. "Not immediately, no. But it does mean our investigation is going to take longer than we anticipated. And..." She hesitated, exchanging another look with David. "And what?" Sarah pressed, a knot forming in her stomach. David reached out, taking her hand in his. "They want Zoe to testify, Sarah. In court. They say her testimony could be crucial in bringing down the entire network." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She thought of Zoe, still struggling with nightmares, still flinching at unexpected touches. The idea of her daughter facing her abusers in court, reliving her trauma in front of strangers, was almost unbearable. "No," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, we can't ask her to do that. She's been through enough." "I understand your concern," Detective Benson said softly. "But Zoe's testimony could save countless other girls from going through what she did. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't absolutely necessary." As they discussed the implications, weighing the potential impact against the emotional cost to Zoe, Sarah felt torn. Her instinct was to protect her daughter at all costs, to shield her from any further pain. But she also knew that Zoe had a strength inside her, a resilience that continued to surprise them all. Their conversation was interrupted by a small voice from the doorway. "I'll do it." They turned to see Zoe standing there, her face pale but determined. "I'll testify. If it will help stop them, I'll do it." Sarah was on her feet in an instant, crossing the room to embrace her daughter. "Zoe, sweetheart, you don't have to do this. We can find another way." But Zoe shook her head, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "No, Mom, I need to do this. For me, and for all the other girls who can't speak up. I'm tired of being afraid. I want to fight back." As Sarah looked into her daughter's eyes, she saw a spark of the old Zoe, the confident, compassionate girl who had been buried beneath layers of trauma and fear. It both broke her heart and filled her with pride. Detective Benson approached cautiously. "Zoe, are you sure? This won't be easy. You'll have to recount your experiences, face difficult questions." "It's okay if you're not ready." Zoe took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "I'm sure. I want to help end this once and for all." As the reality of Zoe's decision settled over them, Sarah felt a mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. Fear for what her daughter would have to endure, pride in her bravery, and a renewed determination to see this through to the end. The safe house, which had felt like a prison of sorts, now seemed to buzz with a new energy. They were no longer just hiding, waiting for the danger to pass. They were taking an active role in fighting back against the evil that had torn their lives apart. As Sarah held Zoe close, she silently renewed her vow to protect her family. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with legal battles and emotional hurdles, but they would face it together, drawing strength from each other and from the justice they sought. Little did they know that Zoe's decision to testify would set in motion a chain of events that would not only impact their family, but would reach far beyond, shaking the very foundations of the trafficking ring they were fighting against. The storm was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, a glimmer of hope shone through the darkness. The decision for Zoe to testify marked a turning point for the Thompson family. The safe house, once a symbol of their fear and isolation, began to transform into a base of operations for their fight against the trafficking ring. The following days were a whirlwind of activity as they prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. Detective Benson became a constant presence, working closely with Zoe to prepare her for what she would face in court. Sarah often found herself hovering nearby during these sessions, her heart aching as she watched her daughter recount the horrors she had endured. One particularly difficult afternoon, Sarah overheard a conversation that would stay with her for a long time. "Zoe," Detective Benson said gently, "I know this is hard, but I need you to be as specific as possible about what happened at the first gathering you attended." Sarah tensed, every maternal instinct screaming at her to intervene, to shield Zoe from having to relive those moments. But Zoe's voice, though shaky, was determined. "I remember. The smell. It was like cheap cologne and cigarettes. And there were so many men, all looking at us like we weren't even human." Sarah had to bite her lip to keep from crying out. She leaned against the wall outside the room, tears streaming down her face as Zoe continued to speak. But there was this one girl. She couldn't have been more than 14. She looked so scared, and I held her hand when no one was looking. I told her we'd get through it together. At that moment, Sarah realized that her daughter's strength went far beyond what she had imagined. Even in the depths of her own terror, Zoe had found the compassion to comfort another victim. As the days passed, the family settled into a new rhythm. David threw himself into researching legal precedents and support services for trafficking survivors. Lily, picking up on the gravity of the situation, became a pillar of support for her sister, often sitting quietly with Zoe when the older girl needed company but couldn't bear to talk. Sarah found herself taking on the role of family anchor, doing her best to maintain a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. She cooked familiar meals, insisted on family game nights, and tried to create pockets of peace in their turbulent world. But the strain was taking its toll on all of them. Sarah often woke in the night to find David pacing the living room, his face etched with worry. Zoe's nightmares, which had begun to subside, returned with a vengeance as the court date approached. One evening, about 2 weeks before Zoe was set to testify, Sarah found her daughter sitting on the back porch of the safe house, staring out into the gathering dusk. "Mind if I join you?" Sarah asked softly. Zoe shook her head and Sarah settled beside her on the step. For a long moment they sat in silence, watching as the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. "Mom," Zoe said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I can't do it? What if I freeze up on the stand, or what if they don't believe me?" Sarah turned to her daughter, taking Zoe's hands in her own. "Sweetheart, listen to me. You are the bravest, strongest person I know. You've already survived the worst they could do to you. Now you're fighting back. And no matter what happens in that courtroom, your dad and I, Lily, Detective Benson, will all be right there with you." Zoe's eyes filled with tears, but there was a glimmer of something else there too. determination, perhaps even hope. "I'm scared," she admitted. "But I'm also, I don't know, maybe a little excited. Is that crazy? To finally be doing something, to be fighting back?" Sarah pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. "It's not crazy at all. It's beautiful, and it's brave, and it's so very you." As they sat there, mother and daughter, the night deepening around them, Sarah felt a shift in the air. The fear and uncertainty were still there, but something else was growing stronger. A sense of purpose, of righteous anger, of hope. They were no longer just victims hiding from a nameless threat. They were survivors, preparing to take a stand against the evil that had invaded their lives. As Sarah held her daughter close, she knew that whatever challenges the coming weeks might bring, they would face them together. The Thompson family had been bent by this ordeal, but they had not broken. And in Zoe's courage, in her determination to fight for justice not just for herself, but for all the other victims, Sarah saw the first real signs of healing. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with legal battles and emotional minefields. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah felt a genuine sense of hope. They were on the path to reclaiming their lives, to finding justice, and perhaps, eventually, to peace. Little did they know that Zoe's testimony would not only be a turning point in their own journey, but would also set in motion events that would shake the very foundations of the trafficking ring. The storm was far from over, but the Thompsons were no longer just weathering it. They were fighting back, and their strength was growing with each passing day. The day of Zoe's testimony arrived with a sense of foreboding that hung over the Thompson family like a heavy cloud. Sarah woke before dawn, her mind racing with all the possible outcomes of the day ahead. She found David already in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee, his face lined with worry. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. David shook his head, covering her hand with his own. "I keep thinking about what Zoe's going to have to go through today. Are we doing the right thing, Sarah? Putting her through this?" Before Sarah could respond, a quiet voice came from the doorway. "You're not putting me through anything, Dad. This is my choice." They turned to see Zoe standing there, already dressed in the conservative outfit they had chosen for court. Her face was pale, but her eyes held a determination that took Sarah's breath away. "Oh, sweetheart," Sarah said, moving to embrace her daughter. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Zoe took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "As ready as I'll ever be. I have to do this, Mom. For me and for all the other girls who can't speak up." As they prepared to leave for the courthouse, Lily emerged from her room, her young face solemn. She approached Zoe, holding out a small, worn, stuffed animal, Mr. Whiskers, the cat plush she'd had since she was a toddler. "Here," Lily said, pressing the toy into Zoe's hands. "Take Mr. Whiskers with you. He always makes me feel brave." Zoe's eyes filled with tears as she hugged her little sister tightly. "Thanks, Lily. I'll keep him close." The ride to the courthouse was tense, the family drawing strength from each other's presence. Detective Benson met them at the entrance, her face a mask of professional calm. "You ready, Zoe?" she asked gently. Zoe nodded, clutching Mr. Whiskers in one hand and Sarah's hand in the other. "Let's do this." As they entered the courtroom, Sarah's heart raced. The room was packed, filled with reporters, law enforcement officials, and faces she didn't recognize. But her focus was entirely on Zoe as her daughter made her way to the witness stand. What followed was the most difficult few hours of Sarah's life. She watched, her heart breaking, as Zoe recounted the horrors she had endured. Her daughter's voice shook at times, but she pressed on, her testimony painting a vivid and damning picture of the trafficking ring's operations. Sarah's anger burned as she watched the defense attorney try to discredit Zoe, implying that she had willingly participated in the modeling sessions. But Zoe stood her ground, her voice growing stronger as she refuted each accusation. "I was a child," Zoe said, her eyes flashing with righteous anger. "They manipulated me, threatened me, and hurt me. But I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. And I'm here to make sure they can't hurt anyone else ever again. As Zoe stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom erupted in murmurs. Sarah rushed to embrace her daughter, feeling Zoe trembling in her arms. "You did it, sweetheart," she whispered. "You were so brave. I'm so proud of you." The rest of the day passed in a blur of legal proceedings and discussions with the prosecution team. By the time they left the courthouse, exhausted but relieved, the sun was setting over the city. Back at the safe house, the family gathered in the living room, the tension of the day slowly ebbing away. Zoe curled up on the couch, still clutching Mr. Whiskers, while Lily sat close by holding her sister's hand. "What happens now?" David asked, looking to Detective Benson, who had accompanied them back. "Now we wait,"